Hi guys, it's Arielle. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you guys are all doing well, welcome back to the podcast. This one is going to be a long one. There is literally so much and so many dramatic things that have happened recently that I just feel like I have so many story times to tell you guys. And it was funny because I was doing my hair before I sat down to film. And I can't remember the last time that I wore my hair like this because I used to wear my hair like this all the time when I was transitioning from bottle shampoo to bar soap shampoo because my hair and my scalp were just really going through it. It was a tough transition. And yeah, I don't really wear my hair like this anymore unless it's really greasy, I guess you could say. And so, yeah, I'm going through it. You guys will hear later on in this podcast why exactly I'm going through it, why I can't exactly wash my hair at the moment. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. I just thought it was so funny that I'm back to wearing this hairdo. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is our ski trip. If you guys are following me on Instagram, then you know that I just got back. But yeah, we spent the last week skiing in the Alps. And even though the trip was only 1 week long, I spent probably a month and a half really preparing for it. We went with a group of friends to go ski at a resort called Les Arcs. It's the third biggest ski resort in all of Europe. So it was huge. And for all of our friends, I think this was their first time skiing at a ski resort, like renting a chalet apartment and going for the whole week, where Jean and I had already done a similar trip with Jean's family 2 years ago. So because of that, I kind of ended up taking the lead in a lot of ways. Because I kind of knew what to expect. Like when you rent an apartment, you know that that apartment isn't necessarily coming with all the amenities that you need. You know that access to groceries is limited, so you kind of have to do the most before you get there. And so yeah, I started by creating an Excel spreadsheet and a menu because I thought it'd be really fun to have everyone cook one meal per night of the trip, and then I would make two meals, like I would make our first meal and then another one. And so I had everyone fill out this menu thing with their meal that they were going to prepare for dinner. And then I had breakfast and lunch so everybody could complete a little drop down checklist of the drinks they wanted, if they had sugar, cream, milk, or in their coffee, what they wanted to eat for breakfast, what they wanted in their sandwiches for lunch. So like really, I spent a long time making this spreadsheet and then also having people fill it out. And then based on all of the meals that people were going to make, I took the list of ingredients and I sort of combined things. Like if one person needed 200 grams of flour and another person needed 100 grams of flour, I made sure that we had 300 grams of flour. And so yeah, I spent like the 2 weeks before our trip going and doing all of the grocery shopping, which also made the most sense because that was so weird. Jean and I have memberships to grocery stores that give us like discounts. We have one for Nutcracker where we get 10% off of any purchase we make. We have one for Costco, as you guys know. And we don't normally do a lot of shopping at Costco when it comes to groceries because we're only two people, and for the most part at Costco you have to buy in bulk. But this was like the perfect opportunity to do a huge grocery shop at Costco because we really could buy for a group of 6 and save so much money. Like the amount of money I think I saved our entire friend group by doing our groceries is crazy. And then even the night before, Jean went to bed early because Jean was the one who drove us to the Alps. He took charge of finding the car and renting the car, and we actually ended up renting a 9-seater almost bus because we had our 4 friends. We were 6 in the car, and then we had all of our groceries, we had all of our luggage, and not just groceries, but I also had these coolers filled with everything that was going in the refrigerator, whether that was bacon and yogurt or the dishes that I'd already prepared and stuff. A 9-seater was perfect for what we needed. But yeah, because Jean was driving us, he went to bed pretty early the night before, and I stayed up until 3 or 4 in the morning baking cakes. I baked 4 loaves of banana bread. I baked 2 chocolate cakes. I made granola. I made a croziflette, which was our meal for the first night. And then I also made my homemade chicken noodle soup, which like I also make the broth. So all of this cooking took so much time. But honestly, in the end, it was worth it because when we finally did get there, because everything is done, because all of the meals are decided in advance, all the grocery shopping is done, you can kind of just hang out all together in your little bubble and not have to worry about, the daily chores of who's making dinner, what are we eating, where are we getting groceries and stuff like that. I think I'm getting ahead of myself though, because the story does not start on the ski hill, okay? The story starts in the car. I'm laughing, but in the moment, I think we all just wanted to bawl our eyes out. Okay, let me just get composed. So when we had decided as a friend group to go on this ski trip, we had to pick the location, which ended up being Les Arcs. It was the rental that was most within our budget, you could say, for the amount of people that were going on the trip. But then we also had to pick transportation, and we were deciding between the train and taking a car. And in the end, it was kind of obvious for us to choose the car. Number one, when you're going by train to the Alps, to a ski resort, the train doesn't take you all the way to the resort. It kind of takes you to the closest town or the closest village. And then you either have to make your own way up via taxi or very long hike, or sometimes there will be some sort of shuttle bus that will take you up, but it's not easy and you're very limited in what you can bring, which brings me to my second point is that it was definitely important for us to bring groceries. There was one tiny little grocery store in this ski resort and they very rarely had things in stock. Everything was very, very expensive, as you can imagine. So we ended up renting the car. And Jean was okay to do the drive on his own because the drive was only supposed to be 7 hours. Like you put Les Arcs in Google Maps from Paris and it's about a 6.5 hour, 7 hour drive. You make a couple stops. Okay, it's 8 hours. And so we hit the road super early in the morning. I think I was up around 6:30. We tried to get everyone at our apartment by 7:30 and we tried to be on the road by 8:39. And it was solid. For the first couple hours, it was solid. We were driving. We would see the hours like count down off of the GPS. And I remember we made our first stop to grab coffee and croissants. And we get out of the car and there was 4 hours left on the GPS and we were ecstatic. And we get back in the car and it's 6.5. And we're all like, what? How did we lose 2.5 hours? Like there's no way the traffic could have gotten that bad. And so we were driving and the GPS would, get lower and lower progressively, but there would always be these moments where it would randomly jump up and back down and up and down. And yeah, like 8 hours into this drive, we were not any closer to getting to the ski resort. And we just ended up in these huge amounts of traffic and it was like unexplainable, the volume of traffic. And so we turn on the radio and we start looking on our phones, like on social media, to see if there's any news reports. And what we find is that on the one and only highway that takes us to the ski resort, there was a mountain that had sort of rocks break off of it to the size of 50 meters squared, which is double our apartment. So 50 meters squared of rock fell off of this mountain right onto the one highway. And thankfully, no one was seriously injured. If I can find the video of these rocks falling, I'll insert it into the podcast. But yeah, it was like kind of I don't know, it was like a 1 in a billion chance. It was just, and not even the fact that while we were traveling, we had the worst luck this would happen, but also that it would happen on a Saturday, because the way that ski resorts work is that the turnover happens every Saturday. So basically you rent your apartment, your chalet for an entire week. You arrive Saturday and you leave Saturday. And so Saturday ends up being the day where there is the most amount of traffic to the ski hills. You have probably hundreds of thousands of people trying to get to and from the ski resorts. And what I've learned about the ski resort that we picked, and Jean and I will never make this mistake again, but that the highway that was affected by this rock is called the N90, and the N90 is the one and only route that you can take to not only get to Les Arcs, where we were skiing, but 10 other ski resorts use this highway to have people go to and from the ski hills, which means that it's just an insane amount of people that need to use this one route. And so you can imagine if this one route is completely 100% blocked, the amount of traffic that creates. And for the first few hours, probably for the first 4 hours after, 8 hours of driving, we really tried to persevere and get through this traffic and like wait it out and stuff. But it was standstill traffic. And you also run into the issue of like, what if I run out of gas on the highway? That is a huge problem. And they also started to shut down the highways, meaning they weren't letting anyone in or off of the highways. And before that happened, we were able to get off in a random small village because we were trying to take a side road to cut across, which didn't end up working. But on the radio, we were hearing that they were opening emergency shelters for people on the highways who needed to stop driving like us after 15 hours on the road. I had never heard this before, like emergency shelters being opened for drivers on the highway. And they were essentially using all of the gyms in the cities along this N90 highway as shelters for people who were stuck in the traffic. So they were really quick. It was kind of crazy because at this point it was probably 11 p.m. But I don't know the word in English, but in French, like mobilisé. People were reactive to the situation. We came to the gym that was closest to where we got off the highway, and they had beds that they were setting up. They were giving out blankets and bread and water. They had coffee and hot chocolate, and it was amazing that they had this set up so fast. And honestly, it was so essential because, I was tired and I wasn't even driving. I can't imagine what Jean felt like. But the problem was that this rock had fallen on the highway and they had no game plan. Like there was no solution to getting this rock off of the highway because it wasn't just moving the mass of rock. It was also making sure that the highway was safe enough for people to drive so that other rocks wouldn't fall off this mountain. And so we really didn't know what was going to happen. We just knew that we were tired. And so we tried to eat dinner and play some board games and keep ourselves occupied. And we were watching the highway to see, if it was getting cleared, if we could get back on the road. We ended up asking, I think it was a group of firefighters who had come to help. We were asking them what they thought, and they were like, do not get back on the highway. Like, you will run out of gas. It is standstill traffic. There's no solution. Like, definitely wait a couple hours at least. Wait until the morning. And so half of our friend group tried to sleep in the gym. I knew this wasn't going to work for me because they kept the lights of the gym on, and the amount of beds were limited. So you either had to sleep on the floor, like on the ground, or in the seats of the stadium. And as you can imagine, a stadium seat, it's not flat, right? Like they're curved. So it's very uncomfortable. I did try. It was incredibly uncomfortable. And so those were the two options: to stay inside and sleep. Jean and I did not think that would work. So we ended up going back to the car and trying to sleep in the car. We decided we wanted to get at least 2 or 3 hours of sleep and wake back up at 5 a.m. and try and get back on the road. And for the first couple hours, I would say for the first 2 hours, Jean and I were okay sleeping in the car, but it was so cold. We had an emergency blanket that this emergency shelter had given to us, but even with just that, it was too cold to sleep. It was impossible. And so we ended up texting in the group chat at like 3 or 4 in the morning saying, how are you guys feeling? Do you feel like you're getting quality sleep? Maybe we should try and get back on the road. The sooner we get to our apartment that we rented, the sooner we can all get some sleep. Because for Jean and I, we weren't getting the sleep in the car. And they weren't able to sleep in the gym either. So at 4 a.m, we all got back in the car. We got back on the highway. And by this point in time, they had opened not open, sorry, they had closed the route that went through the tunnel, which was only one way. So basically the tunnel normally is people coming down from the mountain, but they ended up closing one of the lanes and using that for all of the traffic that was stuck in the lanes where the rocks had fallen, so that those cars could be rerouted and go through the tunnel. But because it was like one lane in this small tunnel, traffic was obviously very, very slow. So we were still very much in standstill traffic, but at least we were getting somewhere. So it took us probably another 5 hours on top of that. I think we rolled into the ski village at like 9:30, 10 in the morning after 26 hours of being on the road. We were all exhausted and hungry too, because by the time we had realized that we were stuck for the night, everything had closed. Like there was no restaurants open. There was nothing open. We just had the bread that they had given us at the gym, and also all of the snacks and stuff that I had packed. But the main meals that I had cooked in advance had to be reheated and stuff. So yeah, we were starving. We were so tired, but we finally got to the apartment that we rented. And I really did think that there was going to be no way of us getting there, and that we'd have to do a full 180 and head back to Paris. So I am relieved that we did end up getting there. And we didn't ski in the morning. We definitely needed some rest, but we were able to, take a quick nap, feel refreshed enough to get on the slopes on that first day, which was nice. So we did have a very rocky start to the trip, but we got there. Everyone was fine. Everyone was really happy when we finally arrived. And yeah, the week skiing the Alps went pretty well. I always say this, and I even filmed an apartment tour of the little chalet that we rented, which you guys will see later. But for me, skiing in the Alps is so incredible, because when I was a kid, my parents put me in like the school ski club, and I did a little bit of skiing back home in Toronto, but the ski hills in and around the Toronto area are exactly that, like hills. They're not mountains. And so my very first time skiing through the Alps, which was probably 5 years ago, I was jaw on the floor, shocked at not just the beauty of the Alps itself and the snow and just the peaks of the mountains, but also even just skiing down these hills takes an hour. Like it takes so long to go up to the top and then forever to come down. And it's a very different experience than what I grew up with at my little ski club at middle school. And the apartment that we rented was really nice, because in the complex itself, we had a pool, a sauna, a hammam, which was honestly a jacuzzi as well, which is honestly so necessary, because it's hard. Like skiing is hard on your body. The muscles that you use to ski are not the same muscles that you use, in your day to day. So yeah, honestly, it was great. It was really fun actually that everyone in our friend group cooked their own meals, because I think it was the first time where we actually appreciated every single person's cuisine. So it was really interesting to see the dishes that people concocted and the desserts that they made as well. That was really fun. I think probably the only issue that we ran into on the trip, and not necessarily an issue, but maybe the only speed bump that I can think of, is that I don't think we were all necessarily on the same page of the kind of trip that we were on. I think that when you book a ski chalet with a group of friends and you book a trip to go skiing with your friends, you kind of assume that you're going to do mostly group activities, mostly do the skiing together, go to the pool together, have wine and dinner and play board games together. And I think there were times when people kind of isolated themselves from the group, which was a little bit strange, I want to say. But overall, I think it was really fun. And like halfway through the trip, I texted my best friend and my mom, And we've been talking about going to the Alps for a while because my brother loves to ski. My sister skis a little bit. My parents don't really ski, but we do ski a little bit in Toronto. And the thing is skiing for a week in the Alps would cost less than it would be to ski for a week at like Blue Mountain, for example. And so we've been tossing this idea around of my family coming to France and us doing this ski trip vacation. And I think that would sort of be the ideal group. A family trip would be the ideal group for renting a chalet and skiing in the Alps with, because yeah, I think you would go into it 100% knowing that it was a family and a group trip and everyone would be hanging out together. And I think as well that the more people you book this kind of trip with, the better it is, because the more you are, the bigger the chalet you can rent and the less expensive it is. I remember when we went with Jean's family, we rented a chalet for 12 people because it was like, there was a lot of us. And in that chalet itself, actually, you had your own hammam, your own jacuzzi, your own hot tub, and your own sauna. So everything was privatized. Whereas in the apartment that we rented this time, because it was much smaller, we were only 6, everything was communal, which wasn't bad. Like, it was absolutely fine. It was very fun. But it is kind of special to rent a chalet that's big enough to be able to have all of those private amenities. And for the same cost. Like, we paid the exact same cost for the 12-person chalet as we did for the 6-person chalet. But yeah, overall, the trip was fantastic. We had a great time. I think the highlight for me is probably going to be the last day, maybe, because we sort of combined everything that's amazing into one. So throughout the week, we had 2 of our friends who were beginners, and they did classes during the morning, and we were skiing in the morning. Sometimes we would meet up for lunch. Sometimes we wouldn't. We would picnic on the Alps. Like, we would make sandwiches in advance and stuff and bring them with us in our backpacks, because it is inconvenient to have to take off your ski boots and go back to the apartment and make your food and come back and ski. Like, it's a little bit annoying, and it's also very expensive to eat. Not very expensive, but it could get expensive to eat every single day in the restaurants on the slopes. So for the most part, we made sandwiches, we picnicked on the mountains. And then the 2 girls who were doing their lessons, because it was their first time skiing, they were quite tired. And so they would go back and maybe rest in the afternoon, and the rest of our friend group would go skiing, for the rest of the day until the lifts close at like 5:30 p.m. And so on our last day, one of the girls actually felt good enough to come with us down some blue runs. And on those blue runs is where I found the seafood bar. And so me and Bonnie, who was the friend that was on the ski trip with us, actually sat down and we had lunch and we had our little seafood platter. And then after, the boys picked us up and we took the chairlift all the way to the very top of the mountain, which is an altitude of 3,200 meters. And the only slope that would take you down from the mountaintop was a black diamond, which is actually very rare. Normally at the top of a ski resort mountain, I don't know what the words are in English. I'm struggling with that, but normally you will have at least a red or a blue slope option. Black diamond is very, especially in the Alps, which is a very complicated slope, you are really limiting the vast majority of guests who want to ski, because it's not everyone that can ski on the black diamond. But at least they did offer you the option of going up on the ski lift and then coming down as well. So you could still see the view and see Mont Blanc, which was right across from Les Arcs, and then safely come back down without skiing down the black diamond. And so yeah, we continued to ski in the afternoon, and then Jean and I ended the day by skiing the best ski hill of the whole resort, in my opinion. By 5 p.m., most people were off the slopes. So we had the run all to ourselves, and it was so beautiful because not only were you all alone on the ski slope, but you also had this picturesque view of Mont Blanc. It was breathtaking. And I mean, there were so many moments where I felt this, but specifically on this run, I just felt so lucky to be skiing in such a beautiful place, to be on such an incredible trip. And I think as well that It also really makes me appreciate my life in France. I mean, there's so many reasons why I really enjoy living here, but one of those reasons is always going to be the amount of paid vacation that people get. I mean, it's one of the main points that I think is so great about the work culture in France. And it doesn't apply to me because I now work for myself. I don't work for a company anymore. But at least it means that when you want to go on a trip with friends or a trip with family, everybody has enough vacation days to book aside a week and go on this type of ski vacation all together. So just overall, I really felt very lucky, very happy to be there, and I can't wait for next year. Sorry, I feel like I talked so much about that trip without saying anything specific, but yeah, if you guys have questions about what it's like to ski in the Alps, or if you want to hear more stories, you can let me know down below. But I do have a ski vlog. I also have a tour of the chalet that we rented and also a cost breakdown. So if you're interested in skiing in the French Alps, then hopefully it'll help you with your budgeting. Then we get to the drive home, which wasn't as bad as the drive on the way to the Alps. It was only a 10-hour drive home, which was honestly fine. We made it through. The drive wasn't the issue. The issue is that as soon as Jean and I got back to our apartment, we realized we don't have heating or hot water. While we were gone, the whole heating system broke in our building. And in my mind, I was like, oh, okay, well, this is fairly urgent given that we are in the middle of winter and it's very cold without heating or hot water. I mean, okay, it's not a big deal if it's August and you don't have hot water, not a problem. But in February in Paris, it is quite challenging to be without heat. And so we ended up knocking on our neighbor's door and we were like, oh, did we miss something? Is there any information you could give us? Like, we're a little bit lost here. And basically, she told us that the solution itself would have to be approved by the building committee. They would then have to place an order for an entire heating system, which is not fast or easy. Then it would have to be installed. And she said, we're looking at about a month and a half without heat, without hot water. She was like, if you have friends nearby, I suggest you go stay with them. And I'm like, I don't know about you, but I don't know anyone who has a whole extra spare bedroom in their apartment to house Jean and I. And so honestly, this all happened yesterday, the day before. And so we're still very much in sort of confusion because there's nothing really that our landlord can do for us because it's not a problem that she can fix locally in our apartment. So yeah, it is a little bit scary. I honestly can't believe our luck first with the rocks falling on the highway, the one highway that we needed, and then coming home to an icebox apartment. And you wouldn't think that it's hard to live without heat. Our neighbor actually came by the other day and she dropped us off 2 little space heaters, which was really nice of her. But there's also the problem of having a shower and washing your hair. And I took the temperature of our water before filming this video and it's 14 degrees, which is honestly like very cold. Jean tried to have a shower using just the cold water and I've never seen that boy scream like as much as he did under the water of the shower. I tried boiling water and combining it with the cold tap water to have a quick shower, but it's not enough to be able to wash a full head of hair. So yeah, TBD, what is going to happen, what we're going to figure out as a solution. I am considering doing a series on my channel, on my main channel, about hotels in Paris. I figure now is a great time to spend a couple nights at the hotel and show you guys what each arrondissement looks like, what the different types of hotels you can find in Paris are. So yeah, TBD. And, I know as with everything in life, I got these comments too when I was talking about my broken knuckle, which, is mostly repaired, is people were saying like, oh, don't complain. It's, there's worse things that could happen. And you know what? Yeah, there are definitely worse things that can happen. But no matter what, washing your hair in 14 degrees water, like, sucks, Doing your dishes in ice cold water sucks. So yeah. TBD. I'll keep you guys posted. But yeah, I forgot to also show off my hand a little bit. We're mostly healed. The doctor gave me permission to ski with my splint, but she said when I'm not skiing, I can take off the splint. For other activities like basketball, boxing, going to the gym, she told me to wait another 6 weeks because she's like, if you lift something heavy or if you overextend your 2 fingers here, you'll hurt yourself a lot more and you'll sort of delay healing. But it was honestly, I had my appointment with the doctor the day before we went skiing, and I was just like elated. I was ecstatic that she told me it was okay to ski with the splint on. So yeah, that was very cool. I do have to say the 6 weeks kind of flew by, which is nice. You always, when you have a cast or when you have a broken hand, or not hand, but broken bone, you feel very limited. You feel kind of helpless. So yeah, I'm very relieved that this is over. And I'm also very happy to be able to get back to cooking and doing the dishes anytime I'm injured, because this is the second time I've broken a bone. I've had other injuries before as well. Jean fully takes on the lead of doing the cooking and the cleaning. And yeah, I'm excited to be able to share that task again. Okay, a few more topics for today's podcast, because even before we left for our ski trip, life was very eventful. And one of the things that I did literally right before we left for the Alps was a collaboration with another YouTube channel called French Country Life, which is run by a woman named Marloes, who has a very similar story to myself. She also immigrated to France, not Paris, but Burgundy, and she immigrated from the Netherlands. And she had reached out to me probably a couple weeks ago and told me she was coming to Paris and, wanted to know if I wanted to film a video together. And I think this was the first time that I've ever even spoken to another YouTuber, never mind another YouTuber who, films similar videos to what I film. And I've talked about this quite a lot. It's honestly terrible. Like, I hear myself when I speak about it, and I know it's a little bit sad, but I typically don't watch other YouTube channels that post similar content to my own, because I don't know, there's something about seeing someone else's content that makes me feel like I'm not doing good enough or like I could be doing better. And I think that when you're an entrepreneur or a very small business, it can be complicated because you have so many ideas. Like, there's so many things that I want to do, but there's just not enough hours in a day to do them all. And so sometimes I can feel like I'm not doing as good as I should be. And that can be amplified when I watch other successful channels, I want to say, which is unfortunate. I wish that I looked at those channels and I felt inspiration as opposed to taking a hit on my self-esteem, I guess you could say. But meeting Marloes and filming with Marloes really changed my mind on this, because we spent such an amazing day together in what we filmed and, also the time off camera. Like, it was just so wonderful to speak with another creator, and not just another creator, but another very successful businesswoman, and to hear her advice and just hear about her story was just so inspirational for me. I'm saying all this, but if you haven't seen the video, I definitely recommend that you do, and even check out Marlo's channel as well, because it's so interesting. I think her videos are so good. I'll leave everything linked down below. But yeah, it was really eye-opening for me to speak with her and to spend a day with her. And I'm hoping that we will do another collaboration, but in Burgundy, where her and her family are. I'd love to show you guys. I don't know what the word is in English, but in French it's gîte, kind of like B&B almost. They have gîtes in Burgundy, which is wine country, and They look very charming and beautiful. So yeah, I'd love to go visit her and film that. And hopefully we will in the future. But it was my first time ever spending a day with another YouTuber. And it was so interesting. And it really showed me the value in having community, especially community where you have similarities, you know, when it comes to work ethic and projects. It's really helpful because you can talk about techniques and ideas and ways to improve and all of that. It was fantastic. And you should definitely go check out the video, which I will leave linked down below. Another topic that I don't want to talk a lot about, I just want to brush over, because it is going to be something that I'm going to pay attention to in the future, because I have seen a lot of French creators, especially on TikTok, talk about the Americanization of Paris. At least that's what they call it. And there's just been a number of TikTokers or people on Instagram who have been talking very honestly about how the landscape in their neighborhood is changing. So the examples that come to mind that are at the forefront of my mind is this one girl who was talking about how the local florist was turned into a Krispy Kreme donut shop, which might not sound crazy to anyone outside of Paris, but we don't have Krispy Kreme in France or in Paris. I think one store opened last year. It's not a common thing to have a Krispy Kreme donut shop in Paris. And so yeah, she was talking about how she was really sad that this, you know, local florist was now turned into this American chain restaurant. And there was another creator also who talked about how a local jewelry store, like a secondhand jewelry store, was turned into a to-go coffee shop. And not only was she frustrated by the jeweler being turned into a coffee shop when there are a billion coffee shops in Paris, but she was really frustrated that this coffee shop wasn't maintaining the sort of classically Parisian values. It's very Parisian, I almost want to say it's very French, to go out and enjoy a drink or a coffee and sit on the terrace and, you know, chit chat with friends. And you're never rushed. You're never under obligation to consume more, which I think is very different from, at least where I'm from, Toronto, Canada, Ottawa, where you would go to a restaurant and the servers, whether it's by politeness, whether it's to be polite or to sort of get you moving, once the meal is over, they'll come to your table, give you the bill, ask if you need anything else. And you almost feel this pressure to leave, whereas in France and in Paris, that pressure is non-existent. You could finish your meal, finish your coffee, and sit at that table with nothing on it for hours after your meal. Like, you can occupy a table at a restaurant for 3 or 4 hours, no problem. It's part of the culture here to sit down and enjoy a meal, enjoy time, enjoy conversation, and you do this at coffee shops and restaurants. And so she was frustrated that this coffee shop that had taken over the jeweler was not allowing people to sit and enjoy their coffee on their terrace unless they bought a meal to go with their coffee. Again, which is maybe just a cultural difference between North America and France. I don't really know, but that's not normal for a cafe in Paris. It's not normal to insist that your customers purchase food to be able to sit. It's a huge culture shock, I think, for someone who is French or who has lived in Paris for a long time. So those are the only two examples that really stuck in my mind, but I am going to be on the lookout of this Americanization. I was reading a couple comments below the video, and people were saying that this is happening because in areas like the Marais, for example, where you have this jeweler to coffee shop transition, they're very popular for tourists, and not just tourism, but also I want to say immigration. Like a lot of people of other nationalities will maybe do their studies in France and live in the Marais or buy an apartment in the Marais. And so the people in the comments were suggesting that maybe this Americanization is due to the fact that some neighborhoods now are much more populated with other nationalities. There's a very international culture, hence the Krispy Kreme and the coffee to go and stuff. So yeah, I will keep an eye out and keep you posted on that. Something else is a topic that I just want to brush on for the moment and maybe come back to later on is the declassification of environments. And let me explain what I mean by this. So Jean and I went to go watch the ballet. We went to go watch the Nutcracker ballet live at the Grand Rex. I put this in one of my most recent videos on my main channel. And it was something that I had been looking forward to for so long. As a child, my grandma would always take us to see the Nutcracker. It's so nostalgic for me. It is like synonymous with Christmas and with the winter. And it's hard sometimes, I think, to find budget-friendly tickets, but I was able to find tickets to see this performance of the Nutcracker at the Grand Rex, which is a movie theater setting, not necessarily like a big opera house, but the tickets were about 50 or 60 euros per person. And for me in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm going to the ballet. So both Sean and I dressed up in a sense. I was wearing a dress with leather moccasins and a cape. And, you know, I did my hair and my makeup really nice. I really was like, okay, we are going to the ballet. I'm going to look like it. And when we got there, nobody was dressed up. And like, I don't know, it's not that I want to be critical of it, but I was definitely surprised that there were so many people like wearing ripped jeans and wearing backpacks. And not just that, but the behavior in the theater was really, really crazy. Like, people were bringing in their own snacks, and not simple snacks, like bags of chips. And the problem is, when you're eating a bag of chips at a movie theater, is not just the chip is going to crunch, but like the bag crinkles when you put your hand in it. And so it's really distracting to sit in front of or behind someone who is eating out of a bag of chips at the ballet. And it was also really concerning to see like people not being able to focus their attention on the ballet. Right, left, and center, you had people texting on their phones, all around me. I could see people on Instagram, on WhatsApp, on TikTok, and it was just like, wow, we have a beautiful performance. Like, why is no one watching? And even during the performance, it was very obviously stated, like they announced it, please don't take photos or videos. And people were there like taking flash photos and videos with flash during the performance. And again, it's just like in my opinion, it is really strange behavior to have at the ballet. And I talked about it with Jean, with my mom, because it really surprised me. And they were like, oh, well, you were going to see the ballet at a movie theater setting. Like, maybe that's why I was a little bit more casual. That's what I meant, not classification. The casualification of, our world, because things, I think, are becoming a lot more casual. But yeah, anyways, it was very surprising to me. My mom and Jean both said it's probably because you went to go see it in a movie theater, and so people were acting like they were going to the movies. And I was like, I don't know. I mean, it's not even close to the same price as a movie theater ticket. It's a live ballet. I don't really get it, but okay, maybe. So that really did surprise me. And it's something that I'm going to not look for, but be more attuned to, I think, in Paris from now on. I'm curious to see if there really is this casualification of society, or if it's just this one-off moment that I sort of experience at the ballet. And then the last topic for today is a topic that I've had on my list for a while. This probably happened 3 weeks ago. And what I wrote down in my notes is, this is what it looks like to judge someone for no reason. Because basically, as you guys know, if you're following my Instagram, Jean and I are looking for an engagement ring. And it's something that we have decided to do together. And I understand everybody can have their opinion on this, whether they think that's ridiculous that we would look for an engagement ring together. I get all sorts of looks when we're in the jewelry stores from the jewelers who are very confused as to why Madame is here trying on an engagement ring before she's even engaged. But yeah, honestly, my opinion, and I'm never going to speak for Jean, but the decision we've made is that it's something that we are for the moment doing together. We're looking together. It's a fun activity. And something else that makes sense to me is buying a ring is a significant financial decision. And I always think that in any significant financial decision you're making, it is important to involve your partner and get their opinion on it. And so yeah, there's a ton of reasons why we are doing this ring search process together. And I'm not saying it's going to be 100% done together, but just looking at a couple ring shops, isn't hurting anybody, and it's an activity that we're enjoying doing together. And so I had some girls ask me about how ring shopping was going, how my relationship was going. And I was like, oh, well, I just tried on this one. Do you want to see a picture? Whatever. And some girls right off the bat were just like, oh, well, that's kind of pathetic. My man, when he proposed to me, put his big boy pants on and picked out a ring all by himself. And I was like, okay, good for you and your man. Like, I'm happy for you that you love the ring he picked. I'm happy that that's the route you guys chose. I'm happy that's what worked best for you. But there is no reason to be mean to me because I'm looking at a ring with my boyfriend. Or not mean, but like judge me and judge Jean. Like, it really felt that it was that one sense of like, oh, well, my man put his big boy pants on and, did a big boy job of picking up the ring. And it's like, if you're saying Jean isn't a big boy, like he can't make decisions for himself. Of course he can. And then there was a couple other remarks as well where they were saying like, oh, this is Arielle the bully, like bullies Jean. And I'm like, what the heck? Do people think I'm a tyrant? Like, what? What is this? Jean and I are a team. Like, I can't even think of a better word. We're partners. We are life partners. We are teammates of life, Like, we are actively trying to help each other and support each other and lift each other up. And it just like really, really, and this isn't the first time either. I have had someone else also seriously ask me like, oh, does Jean like even have a say in things? I'm like, of course he does. What kind of question is this? Like, I don't know. In that moment when they were judging the fact that Jean and I were looking for the rings together, I just really, I felt defensive and very confused as to why this would be a problem for people. Like, why is it a problem for you that we are enjoying looking at some rings together? Like, it's fun to do that as a couple, Oh my goodness. But yeah, I'm sorry. I can't get exactly my thoughts out on this. I don't know if you can hear it, but our refrigerator just about 10 minutes ago started going off and making the loudest vibration noises. And I'm trying to talk over those vibration noises. And like, it's affecting my thought process hearing the fridge in the background. So on that note, I think I will end today's podcast. I feel myself a little bit hyper. So I definitely need to calm down, maybe have a tea. But I know I didn't do it for this podcast. I've kind of been all over the place. I am now settled. I don't have any vacations planned. I will be sitting in my icebox apartment for the foreseeable future. So I will be hopefully back on track with my weekly podcasts. So like I said last time, if you aren't already, you can follow my Instagram, which is Arielle in Paris. And I will post a little question box on there probably on Saturday to get any topics or questions that you guys have that you might want me to answer in a podcast. I think it's really fun to hear from you guys and also to incorporate your topics into the podcast. I'm always very curious to know what you want to hear about. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you soon in my next video, which is probably going to be the ski chalet apartment tour. I'm almost done editing that. I'm just so excited to share it. You guys will see my face in that video. I'm just so excited to be there. So yeah, that's what's coming up, and I'll see you soon.